But with it's almost better about finding the right therapist than it is about finding the right type of therapy.
And sometimes I think and I think this for people in all spheres of medicine, if they say, actually, I don't know, I love it. Love it, right?
I know, me too.
And then, but they say, okay, do you know what? As well as that, they need to say, but I'll try and help you find the right person.
Yes.
So well, the first bit, you trust them because they admit their own, what they don't know. And they have like that level of humbleness, which I just think is essential in medicine. And then they will also go the extra mile or maybe it should be part of their role, I don't know, to find you somebody else who can help you.
Yes.
Otherwise, people like us can very easily fall in between the gap.
Before we jump into this episode, I want to invite you to join the What the F community to hear even more conversations that will make you laugh, cry, and feel more connected. All I'm asking you to do is click on that subscribe button that's right on your screen. I love your support, and it is so inspiring and amazing to see all of your comments. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome to What the F. I am so excited about today's guest, Torie Robinson. And before we dive in, I really want to thank SK Life Science and Neurelis for making conversations like this possible with the awesome, infamous Epilepsy Sparks, Torie Robinson. Torie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So just for audience members who aren't aware, Epilepsy Sparks is an amazing resource at epilepsysparks.com. But what I love the most is your podcast, Epilepsy Sparks, because it's like these incremental bits of information. Like it's like these 15-minute episodes that like I can listen to while I'm getting ready. And I walk away feeling like so empowered by like the conversations. And I'm like, I know more about epilepsy. And like, it's stuff that I feel like I should have known. And I'll always try and keep up, but I love it. I love the work you're doing. And thank you so much for it.
Oh, thank you. And ditto. I feel like we kind of come together like in a yin and yang in the sides that we cover, right?
That's so true. Because like mine's more anecdotal and yours is like very like cutting edge research and things that are happening. But like in an approachable way. It's not like a lecture. It's not like you're attending a lecture. You're just like learning and sometimes laughing. And then, a lot of times you get us laughing. So, and
thank you.
Before we dive in, because I really want to know like, why you started Epilepsy Sparks, but what has your epilepsy journey looked like?
So, well, as with many people, I don't really know when my epilepsy started because people think often, okay, you were diagnosed at this point. That's when your epilepsy started. No, I would say that's probably rarely the case because you go to your doctor like, mate, this has kind of happened or this has happened with the person that I love or whatever. So it's usually past tense, But I was in febrile status epilepticus when I was 10 months old. So it's febrile seizure is very common in babies and young kids, but mine went on for a very long time. That may or may not, that might just be a correlation between the epilepsy, but we don't know. And then the first seizure I recall, and let's face it, we don't remember generally that much from when we're little. I was about 6 years old and having a seizure at school. And I was getting changed after PE, like physical education. And then I just thought, my underwear looks nice, doesn't it? And I started walking down the corridor in just my underwear. Obviously, I didn't think that. I'm just saying that. No. And then I was like, this isn't a good idea. And I turned around and put the rest of my clothes on. That's the first one I remember. But nobody saw it as far as I'm aware. But I just thought this was kind of like normal. These were what I called my funny feelings to myself. Okay. And I didn't tell anyone about them. They were just happening. Yeah. And then I was noticed. So this was going on for years until I was about 10.
You were like, you were like walking down the hallway in just your underwear for years?
No. Sorry, that was one instance of
Got it. Okay, that was the funny one. Because we all
the funny
right?
one.
Yeah.
Yes, that was just one occurrence of a seizure.
Got it.
And then I was having more and more seizures. I didn't, strut around half naked all the time. No,
I mean, I feel like that's the only age appropriate time, right? Just like
depends upon your environment and who's around you.
That's true. Never mind. Yeah. Retracted.
And then, so my parents noticed me being a little bit more weird than normal when I was about 10. And they're like, that's not, apparently I was just staring into space and not reacting. So I was having different types of seizure, obviously, over these years. And so I had an EEG, your stereotypical one lasted maybe 15 minutes, so no abnormalities at all, which happens, we know, in about 50% of patients. And then, but from
wait, time out. I love how you say we know that happens in 50% of patients, but like, I feel like we don't know, like some of us don't know that because we just we aren't armed with that knowledge that you are armed with. And I love that you're just dropping that in there, because there's so many times I'll talk to people who are having an EEG and they're so disappointed they're not having a seizure. And I've been there too. And then so many times I'd get the EEG off, the text would be like, yeah, most people don't have seizures. I'm like, what the fuck? How did, I wish I had known that going through it and I wasn't beating myself up, So anyway.
I completely agree. I think it would be a really useful thing for your neurologist or your neurophysiologist, the person who does the EEG, to tell you, because it sounds a bit sick, but it's kind of like this is the only time you might want a seizure to come on.
Yeah.
Right?
You feel fucked up when you're like wishing for a seizure. Because you're like, I'm literally wishing for the thing I try to prevent every moment of every day. And then it doesn't happen. And then you hate your brain even more. I don't know. That was me. Yeah.
Or you just feel like, I know lots of us feel this sort of sense of failure as a person because of the epilepsy. And then if you fail, in inverted commas, with the EEG, it's just another slap around the face, like, okay, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And if you don't have in many cases, if you don't have a specialist neurologist, an epileptologist, and then don't have a specific interest in the epilepsies, plural, then they might not think, oh, well, actually this person does have epilepsy, or you might not take it as seriously, because this is another sort of thing that happens, right? Unless you're having seizures left, right and center, and if you're not, and unless you're having ones where you shake or go stiff or look a bit different, then people don't take it seriously.
That's so,
how many
no, right, totally. Like I have talked to, again, so many people, and I've had the experience myself where a doctor might not believe you are having seizures, and you're trying, and then you feel like you're just going fucking nuts. Because you're like, I must be crazy, until like it kind of, you have to get to like some point, and I don't even know how you get there, but just being like, no, I know fucking something's happening, and it's, even though all of the medical stuff is saying no, like there is something happening here.
Yeah. And then there can be this sort of the confusion, understandable in many cases, confusion between epileptic seizures and non-epileptic seizures.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for us not to know.
Totally.
Because, and it's very, very common for clinicians not to know as well. And then what if you get treated for the wrong thing? So there was one study done, and it showed that, that 30% of people diagnosed with epilepsy don't have epilepsy.
What?
Right.
Oh my God.
So, and
I'm like questioning everything right now.
And so, much of this can be down to not reading an EEG very well, or I'm sure there are going to be other reasons that people are misdiagnosed as well. But can you imagine if, like, you find out, I thought about this myself. Okay, I've been on anti-seizure medications for over 30 years. What if I didn't actually have epilepsy? I mean, I'm lucky, I know I do, but what if I hadn't? And I felt doped up for my whole flipping life.
That was my knee-jerk reaction, was like, oh my God, what if I had, oh my God, it's just terrifying.
I don't want to scare people by saying that. I'm just
no, don't be scared, guys. It's okay. We just understand if you are. That's all.
No, exactly.
Okay, so I interrupted you. So you were about 10. That was picked up when you were 10 years old.
Yes. And then I was diagnosed with epilepsy based upon description alone. And then I was plunked on some medications. And you can ask me which one, but I can't really tell you because I've forgotten most of my life. So, but I've just been on loads of different medications over my lifetime. Yeah. And it was temporal lobe epilepsy. We would discover that I was having. So I did have an MRI too. And back then, like, seriously, this was like 1991, so a while back. And I haven't seen that scan myself, but it's probably likely that showed a degree of temporal sclerosis, so damage to my part of my left temporal lobe. But it was kind of like epilepsy wasn't overly trendy back then when it comes to medicine and neurology, and it's like
it wasn't trendy. It is very hip right now.
So. Well, darling, yes. I mean, hello. No, I'm kidding. It's so interesting. Like, how can it not be trendy? It's just, I don't normally say this on my podcast, but it gives me a bit of a. Can I say what I normally say? You might have to take it out.
Say it.
It gives me a brain boner. Like learning all this different stuff, and wow this, wow that. And you know what's also amazing to me is finding out that I'm wrong. And I've thought this for years and years. It's like, actually, no, that was incorrect. And we know that's incorrect because either you didn't read or hear about it, or the theory behind something has completely changed due to new evidence. And I think that is amazing. Something I really want us all to be able to do more is to be able to embrace being corrected when something is backed up by empirical evidence. That should be exciting rather than just, oh my God, I was wrong. You know?
Yeah, well, it just means there's progress being made, right?
Right.
When you're proven wrong by empirical evidence, as you say, that means that new shit is coming around, and that's good. Yeah. No, I love that. Oh, I'm taking that home with me.
Anyway, I digress again. So, what was I saying?
So you were on a bunch of medications. I feel like that's a very common experience where we're like, things are just thrown at us and like, let's try this one, and see what happens.
And don't get me wrong, my pediatric neurologist was a really nice guy, but yeah, it was not a great treatment. You know, I'm seeing him once a year, and it's like, oh, that doesn't work. Try that. So I was just trying all of those over the years, and my seizures were getting worse over time. They were getting more frequent, more severe. I started having tonic-clonic seizures, which I hadn't had when I was little. And the first one I know I had, or I was off skiing down a piste in Switzerland somewhere.
You were skiing in Switzerland when you had your first?
In a group of people, and I didn't know, it's where they spoke French, and I didn't speak French. And so, yeah. And I woke up really comfy and warm. I'm like, oh. And then I looked up, and everyone was staring at me and like going funny. And I thought, oh, and I just said in English words to the effect of, oh, I'm sorry, am I okay now? Yeah, let's go. And I skied for the rest of the day.
No, you did not. Oh, yes. My God.
And it's not interesting because no way, if I had a tonic-clonic seizure now, no way could I recover and do that. And it's just so interesting how it changes over time, right?
Yeah, totally. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm just amazed by the whole story, especially like I don't know how to speak French, and I'm with all French people. And like, it just sounds like the worst case scenario for a seizure. You're skiing, you're out of the country, you are not speaking the same language as the people you're with, and you're like, let's hop back on the slopes. Like, it sounds like something that we do very early on, you know, when we don't know what's happening.
I mean, and to be honest, I didn't have emotional support or anything. And so I was led to believe, well, you've got epilepsy, get on with it. Nothing changes. This is your life, you're normal, and you will just do stuff.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, not a great idea necessarily. However, the other side of me is like, why not? Mm-hmm. I could do it. So mind you, if I had a kid or I had a patient, the thing that was having the greatest detriment to my quality of life was the mental health side of my epilepsy. Right, we know that mental health is a huge thing when it comes to epilepsy. And we were discussing beforehand, weren't we, how the difference between what's the word? It's gone out of my head now. Epilepsy.
Calling the mental health issues a comorbidity or a morbidity of epilepsy. And I said I called it a comorbidity, and I love how you kind of corrected me there.
I didn't mean to correct you.
No, it's one of those moments we were just talking about where you like being corrected. You're like, you're learning. That means I'm learning. So I was like, comorbidity of the mental health side of epilepsy, and you said, I'm teeing you up here.
I don't think it's a comorbidity. I think it is a morbidity, part of the same disease, or some people don't like disease, but or the same condition. Mm-hmm. It's all in the same organ. They very often come hand in hand, and both the mental health issues as well as your epilepsy need to be addressed. In my opinion, just so everyone knows, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, nurse, or anything, but in my opinion, I think they must be addressed simultaneously. Because what's the point of just addressing one, because we have to think about how people feel and, you know, how they are day to day. And some people would rather have a seizure than feel like, you know, they don't want to be here. And I understand that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my seizures go hand in hand with both, like seizures and that go hand in hand, where it's like, you know, the seizure for me triggers depression like brutally for 4 days. It's a 4-day horrible depression, where I have notes that, because I don't remember anything like to do. So I have like notes I keep. I open this like little file folder and it's like, this is how you're feeling. Very sad. Like you don't understand the world. It's okay. Here are the movies you like. Here are the restaurants you like to order from. Here are the people you can call, because I don't remember those things when I am that depressed. It's just like my brain doesn't even. So, and yes, I wish a seizure would come without that, but it doesn't for me anyway. And I think that's not that uncommon. Yeah.
No. But can I just say, I think that's amazing you have that list. Anybody listening, watching, get that list. Because I'm the same. If I'm down in that hole, I can't see a way of getting out. And you need that. Sometimes it's a bit of a kick up the backside. Sometimes, you know, and that can be just the tiniest little things. And also, I think giving yourself credit for the tiniest things you do. Mm-hmm. If you get out of bed, that's a big deal.
Yes. And if you don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, just kind of have to embrace all of your everything and just be like, you are here. And that is the thing.
Yeah.
Which actually, so the person that came up with the idea for that list was my neuropsychologist, who is essentially my talk therapist. And very few, in the United States anyway, very few neuropsychologists practice talk therapy. Most of them diagnose, you know, for cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that. And she was I'm just very lucky that I was able to find her, and my doctor connected me to her, and even fought the board for me to go see her. It was an amazing feat. But that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today, was just like the mental health aspect, you know, this morbidity of epilepsy, and like what that journey's looked like for you. Just because I know, like, you know, I've been doing talk therapies since I was 18 when I went to college, and it was like included in tuition. I was like, well, then I'm going to get my money's worth.
Yeah. Darling, I'll have a bit of that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, it's like, I feel like so many people, whether or not they have epilepsy, and I understand this sentiment so much, where it's like, oh, it's just so hard to find a therapist, or I don't know what I need. And you and I were talking one time and talking about cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And you're like, oh yeah, I've done that. And I've also done, and you started naming like all these acronyms that I'm like, what are those? Like, I don't even know. And like, I just feel like you practice such solid mental health. You're like,
I'm like, really? I'm not sure about that. I might know a few acronyms, but that's about it sometimes. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Well, let's start with cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, because you are kind of a walking definition for people with epilepsy. That's not the right word I'm looking for. Dictionary. There it is. Like a walking dictionary, as is Epilepsy Sparks, your website, for people with epilepsy. So, and I feel like you could do a much better job of explaining cognitive behavioral therapy than I could. How would you describe it in your experience?
Well, first of all, just to let you know, I wasn't planning to say this, but I literally, for the 1st of January, I've updated the Epilepsy Sparks glossary, and it's got all these new, we've got about 350 terms on there and stuff explained. So just check it out. If you think it's rubbish, you can let me know.
That's the thing. And the glossary on Epilepsy Sparks is so dope. It's just like, if you have a question, if you've heard a term and you're not sure what it means, go to epilepsysparks.com, check out the glossary. It's unbelievable. That's why I say you're a walking dictionary, because I'm like, I can just ask you anything. Like, I don't even, I'm like, what's a morbidity? What's a comorbidity? Oh, right, you got it.
Rest assured, though, my memory is generally rubbish. Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy is often the type of therapy that most people are referred to, first of all, yeah? If you go to a therapist, largely, and it's a group therapy. And it normally, at least on this side of the pond, lasts in the beginning, they give you 6 weeks, and you're put into a group with people who you think you might kind of get on with. So you're not in a group at all?
No.
Yeah, so it can be both.
This is amazing.
unless I'm making something up, was I thinking about, ignore that bit. See, I got confused. I was thinking of DBT. Ignore that bit. Okay. So cognitive behavioral therapy. No.
All good.
All good. Okay. Ignore that bit. So, but you might want to include it because, as I know, it's part of the whole memory issue, isn't it?
Yeah, there we go.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is a one-to-one therapy and usually lasts for 6 sessions. And but you can ask for more if you're like, mate, this ain't enough. Do you know what I mean? I've got this to work through. And I've been referred for it before. Like, it started, I think, in my early 20s. I went to the GP, the general practitioner. I was like, mate, I'm not well. I really need your help. And but it took me a long time to get to that stage. And
props to you for doing that.
Well, it should have happened years before, trust me. As in, I needed therapy for at least when I was about 8 years old. And I could go into more detail, but I won't in this episode. But so it started about then. And but the problem was with CBT for myself, and I've no doubt other people affected cognitively by, say, drugs or seizures, and that includes people without epilepsy too, is that it's really hard to remember things, right? So that's like, okay, you've got to learn this and, learn to put your memories aside and just move on. I'm like, but you've given me these tips. And even though I'm writing things down, it's really hard for me to remember that. And unless, this is just my experience, unless they specialize in the epilepsies or some or diseases with which commonly have cognitive challenges as part of them, they don't get it. And so you get to the end of your therapy and I'm just thinking, that was really stressful, really upsetting, almost traumatic. And what was the point of that? Right?
No, I had that experience with the first cognitive behavioral therapist that I saw. Did not understand epilepsy. She was actually kind of mean.
But, yeah. What did she do? We'll say.
Oh, she shamed me for somehow an ex came up. Oh, yeah. So I had one boyfriend that broke up with me because I got migraines. This was before I had epilepsy. And was like, what if you were to get a migraine on our wedding day? And I was like, I don't know, I've never thought about that before. Like, that's very weird. And I mentioned that to her as why it's something I'm insecure about and health issues, because that happened when I was like, I don't know, in my early 20s. And she was like, and you stayed with him? And I was like, whoa, you're not supposed to judge me here. And I was like, well, yeah, like I don't know. I didn't know. And I didn't. She's like, oh, well, I can't believe you dated him for that long. And I was like,
and it's like, dude, this ain't a friendship. You're not supposed to give me, even a friend's not supposed to say that to you unless you have that type of relationship. You're like, I want your opinion. But a therapist, darling, this is, you're the professional. You're not, oh gosh.
So and I think that's part of the thing too, because I've had amazing therapists that did not understand epilepsy. Like I had one therapist who was seeing when the whole thing happened, when like I needed my second brain tumor removed and epilepsy started and all that stuff. And I still love her so much. It's just, I have nothing but fond memories, but at the same time, she just didn't understand what was happening. And it's not her fault,
Did you try and get her to understand? And did you try and get her to explain? Not that that's your job to do, but did you?
I don't know, honestly. It was very early in my epilepsy journey. I was on so many drugs, and I don't really remember that time well. I just remember feeling like a little misunderstood. And it wasn't her fault. And that's why, like, I think to your point, finding someone that specializes in epilepsy is huge. Because I tried a cognitive behavioral workbook, and I talked to someone else who doesn't have epilepsy. They're like, I love this workbook. I'm like, I want to burn this workbook. Like, I want to go murder someone because it's telling me to go do things that I fucking can't do, So I think that, like, to your point, that's really, really helpful for anyone listening. Just find someone, like, because looking for a therapist can be very difficult, or looking for a type of therapy.
And often when you need to look for a therapist, you're not in the mood to look for a therapist.
That's so true.
And your patience might not be up there. And and you feel like, oh, I can't find this, it's not supposed to happen, or this is just too much, it's just too exhausting.
Yeah.
And it just, and so I get it, I really get it. But I would rather I had found, as no doubt yourself, I found therapists or whatever that could help me a few decades ago. That would have been nice. And the thing is also, if you find somebody who can help you effectively, not only will they be, in my opinion, not only will they be able to help you now and going now alone, but also they will help you prevent future occurrences of certain feelings. So for instance, you mentioned how you cope or feel like you maybe cope post-seizure with your depression. You've got like this little list of things to do, which really helps you. In my opinion, if you have a good therapist of some kind, they will help you create stuff like that. Now, all therapy is different, but little snippets like that can really help lots of people who might struggle with memory, and even people who don't struggle with memory. But to be honest, if you have somebody without epilepsy who has got depression, they are likely to be cognitively challenged in a way, because it's proven, right? And multiple MRI studies and everything, parts of your brain responsible for memory are dulled when you are depressed.
Yes. And you can feel it sometimes. You can absolutely feel it, the dullness. Did you ever have a good experience with CBT, or was it just like, this is just too, no, not ever. That's the thing. Yeah. And it's not an effective strategy for everyone. I think it's commonly the first thing to suggest But
however, I have met, and I haven't been her patient or service user, but we did a course together so I'm a governor for South London and Wolsey Trust, which sounds rather grand, but it's like a well-known mental health trust in London in the UK. And alongside that, not part of that role, but I did a training course for both clinicians and families affected by epilepsy and mental health. I don't think I told you this, did I?
No, this is new info.
So we're hoping to do another one and update everything. But and it was with a CBT therapist who specialized in epilepsy and CBT. And we wrote this together, and she is amazing. So she only works with people who have an epilepsy, and then these comorbidities of depression, anxiety, etc. And it just showed me there are some people out there who get it. But the trouble is, as with so many roles in the sphere of epileptology all around, there are so few of these people. And most of the time we don't even know they exist, so we don't know what to ask for. And if you don't know what to ask for and you're feeling down, to put it politely, then it's really, really hard. But that's why I think what you're doing is amazing, because it's about empowering people through knowledge and understanding and realizing there are people out there who will get it. Unfortunately, we have to fight for it sometimes, but they are there.
Yeah, well, I think that's so important, because sometimes it's not so much about the type of therapy, but about the person who is administering it. I had that terrible experience with one person doing CBT, and then the neuropsychologist I'm seeing now we've been doing CBT for years, and it takes years, for me anyway, for it to, and I think for a normal brain would take years as well, because you're changing like neural pathways and shit. So like, but with it's almost better about finding the right therapist than it is about finding the right type of therapy.
And sometimes I think and I think this for people in all spheres of medicine, if they say, actually, I don't know, I love it. Love it, right?
I know, me too.
And then, but they say, okay, do you know what? As well as that, they need to say, but I'll try and help you find the right person.
Yes.
So, well, the first bit, you trust them, because they admit their own, what they don't know. Yep. And they have like that level of humbleness, which I just think is essential in medicine. And then they will also go the extra mile, or maybe it should be part of their role, I don't know, to find you somebody else who can help you.
Yes.
Otherwise, people like us can very easily fall in between the gaps. These gaps are flipping huge.
Okay, so what therapy are you in right now? Are you seeing a therapist? Are you practice? What does your mental health care look like right now?
At the moment, I am having DBT therapy, so dialectical behavioral therapy. I think it was invented in the
What's it
States,
called?
actually.
Wait, start over one more time. It's DBT?
DBT.
DBT.
So, yeah,
okay.
Dialectical behavioral therapy.
Okay.
I'm just going to check. Yeah, I have said it right. Dialectical.
Okay. And what is it? I've never heard of it because I'm ignorant. So keep
not.
A little bit.
Well, aren't we all, right? So it involves generally, so it can change from place to place, but generally, if you have good, in inverted commas, care as part of this, you'll have like a group therapy and you have a one-to-one therapy. So like you could have like both in the same week, for instance.
Okay.
And it's a type of therapy that was kind of put together for people who have a what is often called emotional disorder.
I feel like it's more common. Like I feel like I hear that a lot. I don't know. I think we're getting better at talking about that.
The thing is with stuff like that, and it really reminds me of epilepsy. I think the whole. You see like different conditions in different stages of acceptance or perception, don't you, in society?
Yes.
And this sort of, emotional disorder the number of times I have seen qualified physicians and, psychiatrists talking about it in the most awful way. And it's so annoying because it first of all shows how utterly ignorant they are, how utterly biased they are. And all it takes is to go and look in the DSM. So I can't remember what that stands for, but that's like the psychiatric manual of different diagnoses that you can get, and it just shows that you're not what the media presents you as. And it's really similar to epilepsy in that we know we have about 60 different types of seizures. We know that there are about so far 600 genes identified as being responsible for the epilepsies.
Now we know.
Right?
I did not know that. Now I know. Yeah.
Okay. And that there was such a huge range of different types of seizures, but diagnosis and things that come along with it. So people are really much more likely to develop epilepsy, say if they have dementia or cerebral palsy or all these different things. And it's like a big mix of like skank that just kind of comes out in different colors. And it's exactly the same for the other types of mental illness, like emotional disorder, or even, like behavioral disorders that kids might have, or some adults maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And all these different types of things. So, and that's one of the reasons I actually work with South London and Maudsley Trust as well, is to give patient insight into that. But I always bring in epilepsy too. It's like, darlings, do you realize these things kind of come hand in hand? Awfully, I'm afraid, but they do. And one of my recent things that I'm really working towards is giving a voice to people who are nonverbal. So obviously lots of people who have learning disabilities or intellectual disability, some people with autism, they can't effectively communicate, or they're nonverbal, but they're also often more likely to have epilepsy. And we know what it's like when people can't see you having a seizure. So how do you help those people? I feel that we need to, and I feel that's what you're doing too, is to give those people a voice. Because if the quiet ones that just, hang there and, their life expectancy is shorter and all these different types of things.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing work, and something that I'm kind of embarrassed to say I've never thought about before. I've never thought about the people who are nonverbal who can't describe their seizures that are happening. Like that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Wow.
Sorry,
and thank you
I don't want to make you feel bad.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the work you're doing, just to bring that to the foresight in the forefront and be like, this is, because it's like you're just doing such a great job of speaking for literally people who can't, and that's amazing. And I'm so appreciative.
Well, thank you, but so are you indirectly. I'm trying to take the compliment. I try, thank you. But actually, so are you, because lots of people can hear what they say, and also a lot of the people that listen to your work, and hopefully mine sometimes, are actually carers and siblings and stuff like that. So, because often, this is kind of another related topic, but the epilepsies can affect family members as severely, but not in the same way as the people with the diagnosis, especially if you grew up with an epilepsy and you don't really know any different. And it sounds harsh, but if that is kind of your life, and then the people around you are worried, like, are you going to injure yourself? Are you going to die? What are they going through? Yeah, that's pretty horrific. And I think so. We have like
it becomes a part of their story too. Yeah, there's just no denying that. But before we sign off here, because I really want to talk about Epilepsy Sparks and why you created it, and what your like motivation was, what your motivation continues to be to create such an amazing resource, with not only your website, which you just said you updated the glossary, which I can't wait to check out, and the podcast. Like, where did that come from?
So thank you again for your compliments. Very, very kind of you. So after I had a temporal lobe resection, because we didn't finish my journey, if you like.
We did not. No.
But I ended up having, this is not the end, but 10 years ago, I did have a temporal lobe resection. So part of the dodgy bit scooped out. Okay. And just so you know, I still have seizures and I still have epilepsy, but it's not nearly as bad. But after that had happened, then I ended up in psychiatric hospital because my mental health was so bad. Little correlation between the two. And then just a little one. And I just became so frustrated. Like, are you kidding me? I didn't realize quite how ignorant, generally speaking, the world was about epilepsy. I've always been really open about it, open with my employers, open about it with potential partners, on dates, everything. I've never hidden it because it's something that is not me. It's part of my life and I hate it, but it's not me. And I love the science behind it. And I thought, why should I try and get other people to see it like that if I can? Will this be empowering if I can help them do that? And so I decided to try and introduce the sciencey part of it to people and say, okay, this is the epilepsy. These are different causes, And I had to change the name of it because it had a rude name in the beginning. People liked it. I don't know if you can include this bit in, so we'll think about it. But it used to, initially it was called epilepsyisabitch.co.uk.
And that's amazing.
And then people are like, oh my God, I love that name. Oh, it's so good. And thanks. But then I realized, look, I want to get clinicians involved and researchers. And I'm not sure that's going to happen if it's got that name. So
yeah, I understand. Sometimes that happens with what the F too, you know.
People get funny about it.
I know. But
so anyway, I changed it. And then I had always wanted to, I was either going to be a commercial pilot, a surgeon, or a dentist. And when people say you can do anything in life, your career, well, what a load of tosh, because wasn't going to do any of that stuff. And I couldn't study science after I was like 16 because I was just, my memory was so pants because of my drugs and my epilepsy. So, and I thought, this is kind of like a sneaky little way to get back into it. So I started interviewing these people kind of on the sly. Nobody knew about it. And just said, and also because I couldn't be on the video myself, I was just going to be too embarrassed. So I thought the attention can go on somebody else. And so that's what I started doing. And then I was like, God, this has given me a bit of a brain stiffy, this one. This is really, really cool, man.
That's always funny. That's never not funny.
So I was lucky to get some nice feedback. And then I realized that other people weren't really being that interim between clinicians and the rest of the world. And I didn't know who would be the audience. I was thinking it would just be patients probably. But actually, what is shocking in our a recent month of ours, it slowed down over Christmas, but we had 13,000 downloads between YouTube and the podcast, available on multiple channels if anybody wants to look at it. But and almost everybody on the podcast that listens, to my knowledge, because the download data thing's rubbish, but to my knowledge, are actually clinicians. And most of the people that download on, or researchers, and most of the people that listen or watch on podcasts are people like ourselves. So it's kind of, it was just like fell into that. There was no intention. And it's really nice to be able to get a message out to different types of people, including carers, of course, as we mentioned before. And it's just like really fun. And it means I get to talk to people like you, meet people like yourself. And I'm so glad that you're covering the other side of it too. It's so important.
Well, and that's what I like to be, and just to be clear. When I first came across your podcast, I was like, I don't know if I can handle the science. I don't know if I can, and that's just true. Like, because it's not the where I thrive in my brain, science, like in understanding and everything. And then I started listening. And I was like, I feel like fucking awesome right now. Like just from listening and learning, and the conversations are so real. But like, but then after each episode, I'm like, I just feel better. Like I feel good. And that whole empowerment feeling is happening that you are creating through knowledge. Like the whole knowledge is power, which I know we've heard a gazillion times, but God damn, it's true. So I could not recommend your podcast enough to anyone, because it's just truly like, it's something that I love listening to and learning from. And I can't believe every time how I just feel better than I did before I started. Yeah, it's incredible. And thank you so much for your work. Truly.
Oh, thanks. That makes doing it worth it. So thank you very much. And ditto, of course, darling. Ditto all the way. No doubt we'll have another conversation, but yeah, God, we've gone on for like 44 minutes. Oh my goodness.
Well, before we sign off, I want to ask you 4 questions.
Oh gosh,
that are not related to epilepsy.
Okay.
What is your favorite type of book to read?
Non-fiction, to do with science. Forms of science, so it could be like biology or evolution, medicine, stuff like that.
Well, also, I love how you took what you were unable to do, which was, be a surgeon, and you pivoted it and made it yours, and made it your field is medical. That's really fucking beautiful, because it's very hard for people like us to do things like that. So I just admire that so much. I meant to say that earlier and I forgot, because I can't remember shit. So
same, I feel you.
Yeah. Okay, if you could have only one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Cadbury's Dairy Milk chocolate.
What is it?
I'm not sure we can be friends. Did you just ask me what Cadbury's Dairy Milk was?
Yeah. Oh, what that is.
Okay. It's a type of chocolate that from actually I think it might be owned by like a US company now, but anyway, it's just a type of chocolate that's not actually scientifically a chocolate. That's why they have to call it dairy milk, because it doesn't have the required amount of cocoa in. But seriously, check it out.
I will.
The company is Cadbury's, and then it's just dairy milk. And oh my goodness.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm very excited to look into this. What does it mean to you to be a friend? Oh,
just to be there, to be honest, to be able to have a cuddle sometimes, to laugh, to be the type of person where you can say to your mate, actually, you're wrong. This is but in a nice way.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's true. It's true. You can really only say that to friends.
And the most things to have a laugh and somebody you can rely upon. I'll give you a great example. When I was very unwell, I just come out of hospital, the surgery and the psych hospital, and a friend of mine said to me, Torie, I just don't get what you're going through, but I'm here for you. And I was like, that is the best thing ever. Because none of us know everything, but just to say, I'm there for you and I'm not going to judge you. I think that's what a really good friend does.
I agree.
And so
I agree. And the acknowledgement that you don't understand. It's not an easy one to make, but it's
exactly.
Oh, yes. That's beautiful.
Deep, man. Yeah.
Okay, last one. What does self-care look like for you?
Oh, well, the first thing I thought of was plants, because I've got so many plants. But
no, that could be plants. That's a good one.
What? One thing is plants. Yeah. Or plants. Let's say it properly.
And plants. It's plants here in the United States. Okay.
Sleep. Eating enough fruit and veg and water. Having enough water. Listening to your own body. Asking for help when you need it. And just embracing who you are. God, it sounds so horrifically deep and cheesy, but just who are you, and going with the flow. As long as you're not a serial killer or anything, just go with who you are and have fun. I think fun is one of the most important things. Does that kind of answer your question? Because I can't even remember what your question was now.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. What does self-care look like to you? And I love that your first 2 answers were plants and sleep.
Right.
That's
and taking your
very
pills on
fucking
time
true.
if you need to, because
Yeah.
don't just try and miss them, because I did that once and it wasn't a very good idea. I
Yeah,
paid for
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
And seek help. That's a really important thing. Value yourself and seek help. And if you know that you don't value yourself all the time, then get someone behind you who does value you. I think that's really important to have that support for self-care.
Oh, I love it. We're going to end on that. Torie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Everyone, all of the links to Epilepsy Sparks are in the podcast description for today. And I really appreciate you being here and sharing. This is just amazing.
Ditto. Thank you very much, Landis. All right. See you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.